Hi, I'm Mallory, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the basics of Flexbox. So this is just an overview of what we're going to be doing today. I won't go through the table of contents. So Flexbox is a group of CSS properties that allows you to arrange and distribute elements in your page in a very nice and even manner. It is very easy to implement, and it makes centering much, much easier, I think is the huge takeaway. So, just a bit of terminology on Flexbox. The container that I'll refer to is essentially just the parent element that you are trying to flex items within, and then the items are the items that you're actually trying to arrange. So the items will just be elements within your parent element, and then the start and the end will be the left-hand side or the top of your container, depending on whether you're talking about horizontal or vertical alignment, and then the end will be either the right or the bottom. And then the axis is just the middle, either vertical or horizontal, and then this main and cross are just kind of referencing whether you're talking about the vertical or horizontal alignment. So, implementation. Flexboxes utilize a variety of properties. Some of these properties are set on the container element, while others are on the item elements. And you can use more than one property in combination with each other. So we'll start with the container properties. The first one that we're going to talk about is the display property, and this is the property that you must have this to use the Flexbox. It's telling you that this is a Flexbox, and I'm going to be using all these Flexbox properties. So it either takes the value flex or inline flex, depending on whether you want your parent element to be inline or not. And then once you get that display property set, you can use a variety of these other properties. The first one being justify content, and this one helps you align horizontally. So there are these really nice images on the CSS Tricks website, and I found them very helpful in kind of understanding exactly what the properties are doing. So it takes up has five different options, either flex start, flex end, center, space between, or space around. And you can see from the pictures that flex start will kind of align your elements to the left side of the screen. Flex end will align them to the right, and then centering, and they're very well named, so you get the point. Space between and space around will just kind of give even spacing either between or around the elements. Align items is similar to justify content, except it's referencing the vertical spacing, which I think is wonderful because before I knew anything about Flexbox, I found that vertical centering was extremely difficult and not very dynamic. So same or very similar properties or property options to justify content. You can either align to the top of the page, to the bottom of the page, centering them, which is great. You can stretch the items vertically or align them to this baseline. Align content, this kind of determines the line spacing, and the options are all very repetitive, so I would say that once you get the hang of one, it's very easy to use the others. And you can see here from the diagrams just exactly kind of what they're doing. You can see that with flex start, your line spacing is more towards the top. Flex end, it's towards the bottom, and then the space around and space between will determine the spacing between the lines. Okay, flex direction. This determines the direction of the content, either in rows or columns. So I like to think of maybe if you have a list of list items and you wanted them displayed, normally they display in a column, but if you wanted them in a row, you could use this flex direction. You could use it for a group of divs. And you can also reverse the order. So there's a property called, or an option called row reverse or column reverse, and it'll essentially, reverse the way it appears in the DOM. All right, and I think this is the last container property. So this is flex wrap, and this will allow you to specify whether or not you want items to stay in one row or if you'll allow them to wrap around to additional rows as needed. And the options are called no wrap, wrap, and wrap reverse. All right. And so those properties all sit on the container element, and there are a few that allow you to be more specific and kind of target a particular element rather than all the elements within the container. And I'm only going to talk about order, I think, just for time constraints. But order will allow you to kind of pinpoint an element or more than one element and take it out of the order that it is in the DOM. So the order property takes an integer. They can be positive or negative values. If you don't set an order for an element, its default is 0. So if you wanted, perhaps you had a list of divs, maybe 5, and you wanted the first div to be in the middle, you could give it an order of, say, 2, and it's going to appear to the right side of all the elements that have like a 0 order. So you can see here that how they line up from least to greatest, left to right, or top to bottom. And then self-align, this was very similar to align items, but for one particular item rather than a group. And then this flex, there's a lot of content on this page. Flex grow and flex shrink pretty much allow you to set proportions on your page. So if you have available space in your container and you have a particular element that has a flex grow value that is maybe 2, then it's going to be twice as big as the other elements if you give it the space. And flex shrink is the opposite. It'll shrink. All right. So before I talk about the benefits, I thought it'd be helpful just to quickly show just kind of this stuff in action. So here I just put some extremely basic HTML and very, very basic CSS on the screen. So you can see here I have just a div container and then 3 smaller divs inside, and they look horrible because they're all jumbled up together. So if you turn on some of these Flexbox properties, like this justify content, space around, they're magically spaced with even spacing around them. Or the justify content, or just align items centering. So now things are vertically centered magically. And then I can flip how they're ordered into a column rather than a row. And let's see, for an item-specific element, I can change the order. So if you didn't catch that, the first item jumped to the end of the row. And I can make it bigger because it has a flex grow property of 2, so it's twice as big as the other elements because there is space available. All right. Now let's see. All right, I'm not going to put this on full screen because I only have 2 slides left. But some of the benefits of Flexbox is that it's very easy to implement. I think it makes the page much more dynamic and responsive. So I didn't really show you, but I think that you can see that the spacing kind of adjusts. So I feel like it makes responsive design a bit easier. And it simplifies horizontal and vertical centering, which I think is a huge win, and then simplifies resizing. And just some considerations for large-scale layout. It's suggested that grids might be a better option than Flexboxes. And then as far as browser compatibility, most recent versions of browsers seem to support the latest version of Flexbox, but if you are concerned about compatibility with older versions, then you can add these prefixes here to your code to make sure that everything works as expected. Some takeaways. Flexbox is easy to implement. It makes your app look great. You just add that display property and whichever Flexbox properties you'd like. And you should play Flexbox Froggy for practice because it really makes it easy and it really takes 10 or 15 minutes to do, and then you pretty much have mastered it. So I suggest everyone play Flexbox Froggy. And you can also check out MDN or CSS tricks for further resources. And that is Flexbox.